All right, well, welcome everybody to the Fuji X-T3 Fast Start class. In here, we're going to be going over the entire camera. We're going to be going through all the dials and controls on the outside. I'll be talking about what they do and how to set them for different types of photography. Second half of the class, we're going to go into the menu system. We're going to look at all the different options and features in there. And I'm going to help you set up your camera so it's designed and ready for what you want to do. Before we dive into the class too far, I thought I'd give you a few thoughts that I have on the camera because I've been using it for a while. I actually took it on a very significant overseas trip to Bhutan, and it, in my opinion, is probably the best travel camera out there. And I know you can do a lot of other things with it, but travel does include a lot of landscapes and portrait work and action photography and does a little bit of everything, and I think this camera is really good at that. I like the smaller size, I like the tactile controls. The XT series has always been one of my favorite line of cameras from any manufacturer. I've had the XT1, 2, and 3. This is obviously the latest, best version of the camera. They've made relatively small upgrades between the 2 and the 3. It's a bit more of a performance upgrade than anything else because a lot of the buttons and dials are all in the same spot. It's a question that I don't like to try to answer as to whether it's worth the upgrade from the XT2 to the 3 because I don't know what features you use and I don't know how much money you want to spend on your cameras. But it is a camera that I think a lot of different people will get a lot of great enjoyment out of. One thing to note is that there are even more ways to customize the camera. And so that if there's anything that you don't quite like the way that it works on the camera, there's a button that you can reprogram it so that you really like the way that it works for you. So let me show you what we're going to be doing in this class here. I've broken it into a number of bite-sized parts. First off, we're going to go through a little overview of what Fuji is and so forth. We'll spend a few minutes on photo basics for those of you who might be new to photography. The majority of the class is the camera control section and the menu functions. In here, we're going to be going through, as I say, all the dials and buttons. We'll be going through all the menu settings. And then finally, we'll end with camera operation, which is my suggestion on how to set the camera up for some of the major types of photography. I'll also have a summary of the shortcuts. And this camera has more unlabeled shortcuts than any camera on the market that I know of. So those and many of my other recommended settings are in this PDF that comes with the purchase of the class. This is the recommended settings here. And what we have in here is I'm a visual person, and I bet you are too, if you're a photographer, is I've laid out the entire menu system on just a couple of pages, and I've put all my recommendations as to where a lot of good settings are. I have blank pages so you can write your own in. And then I have a page in here somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. At the back that has recommended settings for different types of photography, like action photography, portrait photography, and just general shooting when you're not really sure what your next photo is. And some words of advice on how to set the camera. So this comes with the class, and that would be a good device to have with you as we go through the class. So let's dive in. So first off, you do get an instruction manual with this camera, and this class is kind of designed to take you through all the most important elements of that instruction manual, but there's still a number of things buried in there that you may need reference for. And so it's not my hope to cover everything that's in the instruction manual, but it's my hope to cover everything that's important for most photographers doing most things. And I tend to want to concentrate on how to manually control the camera and how to get the highest quality photos from it. Now this is what is known as a camera class, where we're going to be talking about a camera, and it doesn't discuss photography in general, at least for very much of the class. And so if you are new to photography and you're wanting to get better at it, well, you need to get yourself educated. And if you are interested in some photography classes, I do have a couple of general photography classes. One's kind of short and quick and gets you right out the door in just a little bit of time, and that's the Photography Starter Kit for Beginners. And for those of you who really want to dive in and you like the material and you like learning as much about photography as you can, the Fundamentals of Photography is a much more in-depth class where we have more time to explore all the important topics of photography. So you might want to take a look at those at CreativeLive. I'd like to talk for just a short bit of time about Fuji. They've been around for a long time. Most of us have known Fuji because of their film, which they made a lot of film in the past, back in the days of 35mm, but they've also made a wide variety of films. But what a lot of people don't know is they have a long history of making cameras. And they have a really wide selection of cameras that they've made over the years. I kind of first came to know about them when they made medium format cameras, and they made a lot of different specialty professional cameras. And I think they kind of saw where the mainstream cameras were, and they've been trying to make cameras that fit in different niches around all that mainstream area. In the area of digital, it was kind of weird because they took Nikon cameras for a while, modified them with their own sensors, because Fuji has a very good color science department, and their sense of sensors and color is very good, and a lot of these people would buy these modified Nikon cameras with Fuji's name on them. You put on Nikon lenses and that's what they had. Obviously that wasn't going to work for a very long time, and so they eventually went into their own system. So they started with this X100, and people loved this retro styled camera that had a lot of modern conveniences. And they were just wishing that they would come out with an interchangeable lens version of that camera, which they did just a short time later. And that's where this whole mirrorless X system came from. And since then, they have gone back into medium format and are making medium format cameras as well. And so this is kind of their main line of consumer cameras. But a lot of professionals do use these, but there is also the medium format series as well. Currently, the X series of cameras range from entry-level, affordable cameras, very, very small. And it's kind of a little bit unusual with Fuji because it's hard to tell what is their top-end camera. Right now, yeah, it's the X-T3. But the X-H1 and the X Pro 2 are all equivalent quality cameras. But because the X-T3 is the newest one, it has the most features. If a X-H2 comes out at some point in the future, it'll probably supersede this one in overall features and capabilities. So they're really targeting different types of users in ways that I haven't seen from other manufacturers. And so they have three, I think, very equivalent cameras, but just marketed to different types of photographers. They've also been coming out with a lot of great lenses. And their lenses are what I would call mid to upper end scale lenses, in that they are a little bit more expensive, but they tend to be a little bit higher quality than the average lens from many of the other average manufacturers. And so I think it's something that's nice because you get some really good glass with the Fuji system. Now, on the durability, the care and handling of this particular camera, it's got a magnesium alloy body, so it's a very strong body, of course. They do have quite a bit of weather sealing in this. It's something that they are not so confident that they're going to tell you to take it underwater or take it out in the rain. They still expressly say do not expose it to water, but I know from personal experience, you know, a light rain, a modest amount of water is not going to be a problem on the camera. Be aware that different lenses have different weather sealing ability, and so it does depend a little bit on which lens you have on, whether you might have a filter on, how much water and how long. If it's raining real hard, I would recommend getting a rain cover. All right, hopefully you are ready for this class, and hopefully your camera is ready. And so things that you want to have to make sure everything's ready to go is you want to have a charged battery ready for the camera. You'll need a lens on. You want to have a memory card in the camera, and then turn the camera on, and the automatic setting for the aperture is a orange A, and it is in different places depending on which lens you have, but just make sure that is in the A mode. And on the shutter speed, if you want to make that as simple as possible for right now, you can just put that into the A mode as well. So we have automatic shutters. And on the front of the camera is a little dial that controls the mode of focusing, and S stands for single. We'll talk more about this in the class, but that's a good simple place to begin. And then go ahead and press down on the shutter release and make sure that your camera's working. I'm going to make sure my camera is doing that, and so let me just set my camera up in the various A's so that everything is nice and simple. Turn it on, take a look at my test site over here. Take a photo and see if that came out all right. Looks like we're doing okay, so we are ready to get started with this class. Now there's one more thing that I want to check on, and that is the firmware. So one of the things about Fuji, more than any other camera company out there, is that they do updates on a very regular basis on their cameras. And what's going on is the camera has software that runs it, and just like the software on our computers, from time to time they figure out there's a bug or there's an improvement or a feature they can add, and they post a new firmware update that you can go in, download, and upload to your camera then. And so the way that you can check this on your camera is by pressing the display back button and turning the camera on, and you will get a screen that tells you what your firmware is. And so let's go ahead and do that with my camera here. And so let me turn this around so that you can see what I'm doing. Camera's turned off. I'm going to press the display back button and turn the camera on and wait for that screen to come on, and there we go. And so if you are watching this class somewhere down the road from when I actually am recording this, there might be newer firmware, but as of the date of this recording, the latest firmware on this is 2.10. And small updates would be like 2.11, and then a kind of a medium-sized one might be 2.2, and if they do something major, then they would call it 3.0 and keep going from there. And so if you do not have this, you may want to go to Fuji's website and download the newest software. I'm going to just turn the camera off. So as I say, if you do not have that, or you would like to check to make sure that you do have the most current software, what you want to do is get on your computer and look up Fuji firmware table. That's the easiest lookup words that I have found that will get you to the current software for it. You download the software to your computer, you put it on a memory card, and then you put the memory card in the camera, and then use that same system of hitting the display back button, turning the camera on. The camera will then recognize that there is software on the card, and it will upload it, and it will usually take a few minutes. And so make sure you have a full battery charge when you are doing that. And so get your camera updated with the latest firmware so that you're ready for the rest of this class.